The isolation of recovery. In early July 2016, I woke up in my hospital bed, dazed and in pain on the first day of my brand new life. I had just come around from surgery to fit a gastric pacemaker, which would transform my daily life from being curled on my bathroom floor with my head sunk firmly in the toilet, to being able to smile and mean it, for the first time in almost a decade. As a third anniversary draws near, and I contemplate getting a tattoo in memory of the op, I can't help but reflect upon how the whole direction of my life has changed thanks to the surgery. I can eat food without fearing throwing up, I can exercise because I am not constantly weighed down by my fatigue, my skin is brighter and healthier than ever before. I can work and I'm getting a degree. It feels like a whole new me. But 3 years ago, as I washed the surgery wounds and curled concave in healing pain, I remember how isolated I felt. On the journey toward getting better, I was the loneliest I've ever been. I couldn't stand up on my own, you see, let alone walk. I spent that hot summer housebound or hobbling for a few scant minutes on my grandfather's old walking stick, fondly named Stan the Man. Friends came by a few times to see me, and in those moments I could feel almost like myself for a while, even if I was contorted around my stitching and too terrified to laugh. The real problem wasn't friends not coming often enough, it was me. I wasn't comfortable with anyone seeing me so vulnerable. I never knew before that it could be painful to be seen, but sometimes those pitying glances made me feel slightly monstrous, especially by people who were able to move on. My friends had all grown up without me, going to university and getting jobs whilst I was being pinned in place by my illness. Invitations stopped coming because everyone knew I couldn't leave the house, and from the inside, it felt like my existence was slowly being shifted to the sidelines. I was weak and pale. I felt bloated and ugly and ill-fitting in my body. I didn't want anyone to remember me as feeble and incapable as I felt. So I stopped calling. I stopped texting. I didn't reply to anyone. I allowed myself to fall neatly into the isolation I was already slipping into, the way intermittent depression through my illness had taught me so well. Slowly but perceptibly, people stopped dropping by. The messages slowed just as the clock seemed to, and I withdrew into my body. But then I found somewhere I could be comfortable with discomfort. On the internet, I could speak about my pain in visceral detail and people responded with resounding enthusiasm. The get well soons, the well-wishing and the well-meaning questions. I was awash with wells. For a little while it was almost as if I had a small separate life where it was okay to be ugly and awful since people not only accepted it, but they rejoiced in it. With my small but loyal internet audience, there were no scheduling conflicts, no contact, only on the condition that I made it to dinner. I gleefully threw my pain out into the world and gulped down the attention it gave me. My phone became my constant companion, my laptop rarely switched off. The irony was, the more I exposed of my pain and suffering, the stronger I was becoming in reality. My internet persona was my decomposing portrait and my healing body like a youthful Dorian Gray. I truly think sharing the pain in a safe way is cathartic and holds a special place on the road to recovery. Even though it was getting easier to walk and the pain was lessening, I had been in such extreme agony for so long that it was where I was comfortable. It was all I knew. I liked that people cared about my pain, and even though I was starting to feel better, I could also see there was more encouragement when I was in the depths of despair than when I was saying, "I think I'm getting better." Not long after surgery, when I could walk mostly unaided, I went to therapy. With the support of my therapist, I started to talk through and unpack where I was mentally and physically. Eventually, after so much self-hatred, I could finally start to genuinely enjoy my healing process. My mindset finally caught up with my body, and I was on the path to getting better. But where did that leave me socially? For a while I was stuck in a no-man's land of self-imposed isolation from my real-life friends, who had grown up and apart from me, whilst also drifting from my internet friends who were less interested in, comfortable with me, when I was healing. This isn't a unique experience. I've since spoken to others who have also lost friendships because they changed when they healed. It can be hard to champion someone else's self-betterment when you aren't there yourself. Luckily, I didn't want to be alone in real life anymore, and I felt comfortable reaching out again. My closest friends, the very few who had seen me hooked up to feeding tubes and curled up in agony time and time again, welcomed me back with open arms. Apologies on both sides for each of us letting the other drift apart. Plus, I still have 2 or 3 internet friends who did levy me as I got better, our relationships mutually supportive and healthy. Still, I was left with a lot of loss. I got sick in my early teens and had my operation in my late ones, and unfortunately, these are transitional years. Everyone around me moved on, and I just couldn't. It's natural to grow apart as you move in different directions, but for me, it felt like such a personal abandonment because I wasn't moving at all. Clinging to unhealthy dynamics with people who were deep in pain and depression and weren't ready to start the healing process was worsening my mental state, and so those people had to fall away as I allowed myself to feel better again. I am still chronically ill, and my anxiety and depression do still rear their heads, but with some surgical and psychological help, I am far more equipped to handle it. I am more gentle with myself and far more passionate about supporting others. I am a part-time mental health support worker during the week. I am always trying to broaden my support network with like-minded people trying to do their minds and bodies better. Most crucially, though, I am now firm in the belief that healing doesn't have to be, and shouldn't be, a solitary act. Just so long as you have the right people by your side,